Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the market, that is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some or a lot of money on the internet. Load up discussion today. We have a bit of a red day across memes. We have, I think the market's digesting the pump $1 billion raise. People considering that's going to take a lot of liquidity out of the market. So we'll be talking about that. We're talking about JPMorgan planning to offer clients financing against crypto holdings, which I think is quite big news. And we have the final headline, which is going to be Circle's IPO, said to be 25 times oversubscribed ahead of going public today. Looking forward to Legendary's breakdown of what is going on there, what we need to know, and what that means for the rest of the raises taking place. There's some other interesting comparisons to make there, I think. So that is that. We'll also be talking about the rest of the market and other interesting aspects we want to draw out today. Delighted to say, got Legendary in the co-host seat with me, ready to get into it. But just a reminder, friends, before we do, nothing that we say here is financial advice. The market is incredibly risky. We don't know anything for sure. So please proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, it's Thursday. It is the 5th of June. How are you doing today?
GM, doing quite well. Summer has started in Vienna very spontaneously, very suddenly. We went from 14, 15 degrees to like 32 within a day. So, and it looks like it's going to stay that way, which is pretty lovely.
Very nice. Why is it so sudden? I thought didn't you have some nice weather and you had some bad weather and then it's just got good again?
No, we had like good weather for like 2 days, and then it went on to like bad weather and rain for like the last 3 weeks or so.
Beautiful.
And then we went back to instant summering.
I see. Weather is shocking as well. Absolutely shocking. Just classic London grey today with a little bit of rain mixed in. So I guess we could do some work. So it means we don't need to go out. It means we don't need to be distracted from the market. So might as well get some work done. What else, Edge? What else is going on your side? Anything else before we get into the main stuff? Anything catching your attention in the real world?
It's catching my attention in the real world. One of the things is obviously Liminal. We both had posts out about that yesterday and today, but we're going to touch on that a bit later in the show.
Just excited about some of this Hyperliquid stuff,
Yeah, there's a couple protocols on there that work in a different way, that have a different structure, which I find to be an innovation, and I quite like that.
Yeah, I think it's good. As you said, we'll talk about it a bit more in a bit, but like net new things being created, and who knows whether these things have been created before in some capacity. They just didn't get the kind of uptake, but it definitely feels like there's some cool new things, at least from my perspective. I've only been here since 2021. So we'll discuss a couple of those things that we've picked out in a little bit as well. But as usual, let's kick things off with getting you up to speed with everything you need to know from the major perspective, starting with Bitcoin as usual. What a terrible day. Raining outside. Everything is red as far as the eye can see. Bitcoin is down only 1% though, 104,000. ETH is down 1.5% to 2,594. XRP is down a couple of percent to $2.20. BNB is flat at $666, down, well, around 1%. Solana is down 3% to $152. And our other favorite alt majors, Hyperliquid, is down 5% to $34. That's been, a bit more volatile recently, probably understandably because it's the one that moved most. But now that means it is the most volatile on the downside too. Interestingly, that's flat on the last 7 days, whereas everything else is red on 7 days. So, all things considered in the last week or so, holding up pretty well. And Sui, on the other hand, is down a couple of percent to $3.14. Pretty sure that was as high as $4 not so long ago. Getting into the meme coin side of things, not much to be pleased about, I don't think. A lot of red. Doge is down 4%, Pepe's down 6%, Trump's down 4%, Bonk is down 6%. SPX, Murad's coin's like always holding up really well here, Ledge. Maybe we need to chat about that in a second. That's flat, just down 0.5% at $1.18. Something's going on there. I think it's performing really well. It's down 2% on the week, whereas all of those other ones I just mentioned were down 16, 11, 19, 14, 22, respectively. Fartcoin's down 31% in the week, whereas SPX is down 2%. I think we need to have a conversation there. WIF's down 10% as well on the day. As I said, Fartcoin's down 15% on the day, 31% on the week. That's becoming a hard. It's not very nice to see. Pengu is down 5% as well. Same story across the board. Everything is down. It's red. It's a bad day. Interestingly, Anime Coin is up 1% for some reason. And maybe not a meme as such, but the launch coin ecosystem, the launch coin itself, for the Believe app ecosystem is up 14% on the day to 140 mil market cap. So that one is very much going against the trend of the day. Getting into the headlines themselves, as we mentioned, red day across the board. I wouldn't necessarily attribute all of that red to Pump Fun saying that they're going to launch. They're looking to raise $1 billion at a $4 billion valuation. Although some people were saying, like, look, there's a big circle raised, the IPO taking place. Pump Fun are trying to raise $1 billion. Plasma just announced their initial cap is going to be 250 mil, which should suck a lot of stablecoins out of the market. So, we'll talk about that today, considering where all this liquidity is going and if that is going to affect which coins if they do. JPMorgan plans to offer clients financing against crypto ETF holdings. And finally, as I said, Circle's IPO is said to be 25x oversubscribed ahead of going public today. So we'll touch on all those headlines in a bit more detail in a bit. Notable price action, as I said, Hype's down 4% to $34. Launch coins up 20% almost to 140. Wrecked Drinks is actually up 4% as well to 114 mil. That's doing unbelievably well. They just sold out the new Shipwrecked Blue flavor on OpenSea, I think in 17 minutes. So Ovi's really crushing it there. It was great to chat with Ovi on the show just last week as they were kind of talking through their plans and what he was thinking about as for Wrecked, the brand coin itself. That's the main headlines and some price action. Ledge, anything we need to know on the NFT side?
Absolutely, yeah. Apart from the majors, Pudgy's being down 2%, Azuki's actually being down 5%, Miladis being down 3%, Kaito Genesis NFTs being down 10%. There is some massive green to point out. And one is to do with SPX. It is a Project Ian, which is the NFT collection kind of affiliated to Murad's coin, being up 44% on the day, back at a 1.25 ETH. Diablito also pointed out the same thing that Brett said on the show yesterday, that Murad has been extremely active on TikTok. It's up to 4K followers there and is putting out TikTok after TikTok to talk about the meme coin side of things. And the other collection that had a move is one that we probably haven't touched on in, I don't know how much time. It's World of Women, being up 40% on the day as well, 0.47 ETH floor.
Definitely agree. I saw the TikTok stuff. Shout out Diablito for pointing that out. I saw that he's really gunning for it, like absolutely impassioned videos to the TikTok masses. God, if you're watching on screen, Legendary's just pulled up what these TikToks look like. This is Crypto Jesus, isn't it? That's basically what this is. Self-styled Crypto Jesus, don't you think?
I don't want to go with the Jesus comparison, but I know where you get it
from.
You're
telling me that's not self-styled to look like Jesus?
Oh yeah, it certainly is. Yeah.
How many views are these getting? Can you see? I can't see from.
Yeah, so he has 4K followers, 20K likes. The most recent ones have like 7K, and then there were a couple at 20K here, 57K there, 40K. So the first ones did low to mid 5 digits, and now it's mid to higher 4-digit views.
Look at these. What would you call them? They're not like thumbnails, are they? But the initial taglines, maybe the tagline for these videos, these are pretty good.
It's pretty aggressive. One shows the SPX logo, and the title is "Biggest Success Story of This Decade."
Bulls will win in the end.
Strong meme coins are a high IQ play.
Okay, well, this is actually, I would look. We can only go on evidence. It's the only thing that's holding up, and he's going incredibly aggressive on TikTok. So no one else is going incredibly aggressive on TikTok. I would be happy to attribute some of this to the TikTok thing. whether or not it's actually people TikTok buying on TikTok, or whether it's just people who are on native crypto Twitter seeing him doing the stuff on TikTok, saying, "Well, this is a good strategy. Maybe other people will buy," and then they're the ones buying and holding. It's one of those two things, but I'm happy to say that that's part of it. What do you think, Ledge?
Certainly people noticing that, yeah. And he's not the only one trying to go more after TikTok. Clemente recently has been pretty outspoken about that too, saying that X is not a very positive place to learn about crypto, so TikTok is better. I actually disagree with that. Yes, there's a new audience there, but I think the amount of brain rot content on every social media platform is like 95% plus. And it doesn't matter if you're on X, TikTok, Instagram, whatever. It matters more which creators you are following. Definitely agree with about that there's a new audience, but I don't think that TikTok inherently is more beginner friendly for crypto people than X or any other platform would be.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's fair. By the way, we have a modern market TikTok with not many followers, although the videos are getting quite a lot of views. If you are on TikTok, have a go and search for modern market and give it a follow. I don't know if followers even is the thing that matters these days because the algorithm is so powerful, but we would appreciate that. Ledge, something that you don't know, quickly, a quick side note, because I never really had access to the modern market Twitter account. It's a modern market TikTok account, but obviously I've got it now. And as I go on now just to see how it's going, and then I scroll the thing, I just getting like these random German like crypto videos. And now I'm practicing my German again because it's just it's all coming through.
Yeah, so I'm not using my personal TikTok account anymore. So you basically get my personalized feed. It also has surprisingly a lot of Austrian police videos. I somehow started to watch like Austrian police.
I'm getting a good update on the Austrian policing and justice system. So I'm being fed Legendary's algorithm. Like this is
weird, actually. This is like super intimate in a sense.
It is. I can't believe you've given me access to your algorithm. It's pretty good. Okay. So that is that. I will give routine updates on the algorithm. But the thing is, just a final thing. I don't spend too much time on it because I don't want to ruin your algorithm. I just do like a few swipes to see what you are experiencing, and then I get off because I don't want to taint the algorithm.
Damn, now I need to think about the next time that I watch a TikTok, what that video will trigger, and if you will see something similar and think that I completely lost the plot because I'm diving into some sort of weird niche.
You'll know I'm watching. I'm watching your inside the inside of your algorithm. Okay, getting back to the main stuff. We should get to the roundup. There's some other interesting things going on in space. Let's get you up to speed with those. Russia's Moscow exchange launches Bitcoin futures trading for qualified investors. Binance to launch altcoin-only spot liquidity program targeting smaller market makers. This was interesting. I like this. 3Jane announces a $5.2 million seed round led by Paradigm to enable first scalable credit-based money market on ETH. I'm super interested in the kind of money market, the private credit market. Remember we spoke about not Wintermute. What's the other one? Wildcat. We're going to run out of these cool names soon. Wildcat is one of the kind of private under collateralized lending platforms where you as individuals can lend to people like Wintermute, like CMS Holdings, like some of these crypto funds who are just asking for a ton of money. They'll tell you what it's for. They'll tell you what the terms are, and you can do it in a permissionless way. Obviously, they're not putting up any collateral for that, so it's a bit more risky. But it's an interesting option, and I think this is in that arena too. Big news here. Plasma announced caps for the XPL sale. Remember, Plasma being the blockchain backed by Tether, have been increased to 250 million. They had initially said it would only be a $100 million cap. However, in the same sentence, they then said individual deposits are limited to 50 million. So technically, 5 whales or Justin Sun and his 4 close family members could eat up the whole Plasma allocation. Although, as I've noted before on this, if you're thinking about entering, yes, it's going to be a whales game, so that's almost guaranteed already. but they are very much incentivized to keep increasing the caps. So fair enough. Say that for the first cap, loads of people, very few people enter with huge amounts of money. Sure, they're going to capture a lot of the points which will lead to their allocation not so long after, because it's a time-weighted system where the more you put in for the longer amount is the more points you get, which equals your ultimate XPL allocation. But they're incentivized to keep growing the cap because all of that money that you put in gets turned into USDT. So they're trying to vampire all of your stable coins. Say that you hold the majority in USDC and you enter the pre-sale, not the pre-sale, you enter this raise in USDC. You're going to get that money back in USDT on Plasma if you hold it all the way through. So they're very much incentivized to keep raising the caps, keep getting people to throw more whatever stable coins you have, so that they can turn it into USDT on arrival and get you onto Plasma chain. So I think we could actually see some crazy numbers here. I don't know. I think we could see a real crazy number that gets moved over. Mega ETH shared Euphoria teaser tap to trade mobile experience. That looked very cool. Continuously interested in Mega ETH at the moment because it's just the right time for Mega ETH because their focus has been apps for a long, long time. And we're just at the point where some of these crypto apps are starting to be valued incredibly high, being valued as proper businesses, being valued on revenue. And that, I guess, will be how Mega ETH's apps will want to be valued too. So excited to see that. A few more bits and pieces from around the space. Chinese firm Weebus files with the SEC to raise $300 million for an XRP treasury. These treasuries are coming left, right, and center. Spanish coffee company Venadi plans to invest over 1.1 billion into Bitcoin as part of a reserve strategy. And interestingly, it's been a bigger conversation about this last few days as Elon's got involved as well. Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong says Bitcoin will become the world reserve currency if the US electorate does not hold Congress accountable to reducing the deficit. Elon's been on a complete rant about this the last couple of days, saying that this is just the most ridiculous spending bill. And everyone who's a part of it is like deeply irresponsible, etc., etc. So curious for some thoughts in there. In a second, just a couple of points on the social crypto side. Kaito community has unlocked the full 0.75% of Newt rewards from Magic Newton. And then finally, the Infinex snapshot announcement for Kaito stakers was brought forward to yesterday's announcement. Future airdrops will be time weighted to reduce large market movements around drops. So if you're staking Kaito, you can't just like keep buying and selling huge amounts and thinking that you're going to get a nice allocation of these partner drops. So that's important to note. That's that. Legendary. Before we get into the main headlines today, I think there's a few things that's catching my attention that we can chat about for a second, but what's catching yours?
Yeah, so many good things in the snapshot. Could talk about that all show. Let's touch on a few. The time waiting on Kaito. Brett and I yesterday talked on the show. Brett was describing the pendle strategy again and how that yield is now up to God knows how much, 110% or whatever it is at. And that it theoretically you could have timed moving between staked Kaito and between having pendle exposure and just get both yield as well as the snapshots. And yeah, a couple hours later, obviously Brett and Oxy, I think, was also looking into that. We're not the only people thinking about that. They said, nope, from this point forward, it's going to be time weighted. You can't do that strategy anymore. And I think Yuho has been also speaking about some potential changes coming to the ranking algorithm, which could be very interesting. One of which is to actually make a difference between loyalty for post and pre-TGE projects. And then another idea that they're exploring, it's not guaranteed that it's going to come, is that you can actually self-align with a certain number of protocols. So say you want to self-align with Mega ETH, you can do that, which means you will natively boost your mindshare by doing that, by saying, I want to self-align with this protocol. I think you won't, obviously can't do it maybe with one or two protocols, it's not going to be a high number.
Interesting.
But that's going to be helpful for people like Whale, who talks, because he covers almost the news, every protocol that's on Kaito, but he has a hard time ranking maybe on some of the leaderboards that he wants to be on. But now he could express his preference of wanting to be self-aligned with Mega ETH, Infinex, or whatever interests him the most.
Interesting. That's kind of cool. So it's kind of like you putting down a bit of a, you know, back when you used to be voting for protocols, that whole process has stopped. Now it's kind of like, look, I have X allocation, X points, whatever. I want to put those down on a particular protocol because I like them more and I get some kind of multiplier. One final reflection here. I want to move on from Kaito, but my reflection is, personally, I really like Kaito when it's just in the background. I don't want to strategize. I don't want to talk about, like, I think they're a great business, to be clear. Great business, great product, great shipping stuff, like really interesting information, really broken the traditional Web3 marketing system. So excellent, excellent business. But I feel like I'm in the business of crypto and I like covering crypto stuff. So, you know, we're going to talk about a couple of Hyperliquid things, Legendary, in a second. That's what's really excited me, that I kind of experienced a couple of net new things that I just didn't, maybe they exist. I haven't seen them before, but experienced some net new things. The marketing side, which is basically what the Kaito conversation is, I appreciate it's a huge financial opportunity for a lot of people now, and people should participate. But I love things when that kind of stuff's just like participating in the background, and then you get your rewards, and then you can go off and do your proper business, which is the Hyperliquid stuff and the focus on the teams that are actually building in crypto, rather than focusing on the ways to game the marketing system. Which, look, obviously it's an inevitable thing in the space where there's financial opportunity, but Kaito themselves have taken up a disproportionate amount of crypto mindshare in a way, when in essence the whole point of them is to distribute the mindshare to other people, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, because people talk about Kaito and what Kaito is doing all the time, on top of talking about new leaderboards being implemented. So they kind of need to filter themselves out in a sense, because even if you talk about, I don't know, a new leaderboard that comes, the Newton or whatever, that comes online, and you mention Kaito as a part of that, you will give additional mindshare to Kaito as the attention base layer, so to speak.
Exactly. Okay, with that in mind, we just spoke about it for multiple minutes. I think the thing we probably wanted to bring up here, Legendary, was a couple of interesting new things we've found on Hyperliquid. I put this tweet out. I want to give you a chance to speak to it, but I put this tweet out earlier today to just say, like, and look, maybe other people who've been around the space longer than me might be able to tell me that I'm wrong. So I'm open to that being the case. But I said things being built on Hyperliquid that I've just never seen before. Two things very recently that I found very interesting. One, look, aggregators are not new in crypto, but an aggregator which decides to give 100% of its revenue to stakers, which is what Liquid Launch has done, and you know that's the aggregator on Hype EVM. You know, volume on Hype EVM is not super high at the moment. You're kind of bet, like, if you were to take that bet, which we have, by the way, that Hype EVM activity is going to increase moving forward, then it's like a reasonable bet to make. But the point is, I've never seen people just say 100% to stakers. Like, that's something that people talk about all the time. Are you going to share revenue? Are you going to do it? They've just done it super early in the lifespan. So that was pretty exciting. And the price action has reflected that. I think it went down as low as 20 or so, 20 cents when the last hype dip. Now it's up to 60 cents or something like that. So it's been a clean 3x off the lows, which was like 2 days ago. And then another interesting one, the delta neutral Bitcoin positions, which are managed for you. Remember this basis trade that lots of huge funds are doing, and all kinds of other people are, you know, delta neutral. They're not taking any risk, but they're just kind of arbing the funding rate because of this specific way the funding rate works in crypto. And Liminal has produced a product which allows you to deposit stablecoins. Then it just runs it for you. You can run the basis trade on Bitcoin. You can choose your assets. You can do Bitcoin. You can do Fartcoin. You can do ETH. You can do Solana. So I was just looking at those two things recently, being like, that's exciting. That's exciting for crypto. Two new things, both seemingly good products, working, strong kind of, well, one with a particularly strong community focus. One was just like a really great thing that you don't have to now manually manage because they're taking care of it for you. Ledge, want to give you a chance to speak to both things. I know you were on top of them as well. What are you thinking there?
Yep. Let's maybe start with Liminal. So you said it's a delta neutral strategy. Basically, what it does is, say you farm the BTC market. With that, it's going to have, for example, a long open as a spot. Then it has an equal of a short position in the perps market of equivalent size. There's a funding rate involved, and basically this is where the yield capture is coming from. Liminal is also earning, but they do it a bit different than, say, your traditional hedge fund, which would do the classical 2 and 20 model, so like 2% management fee, 20% carry on the profits they realize. In Liminal's case, all they take is a 10% performance fee, so there's no fee taken, obviously, if the strategy isn't earning money. I think the reason why we both like Liminal is not necessarily only for the yield. You deposit stables into that, and then you pick one of the strategies or one of the assets that you want to farm with. But more so, if you pick BTC, Sol, ETH, or Fartcoin, these are unit assets. You get some unit volume going, and that again goes back to you talking about unit and speculating on a potential airdrop there. So it's basically an automated way of getting some volume in and having a yield earning layer on top of that, which I quite liked as well. And the interesting thing was, when I looked at the risks in the documents, I realized there's no smart contract risk. So obviously there is risks there. There's market risk, negative funding rates risk. There's infrastructure risk with Hyperliquid. There's still the risk of the stablecoin, the USDC that you deposit to potentially depeg. Liquidity constraints if you want to withdraw, and there's just not enough money there. But there's no smart contract risk because they don't use smart contracts on Hype EVM. So you have execution risks for the strategy, but not specifically a smart contract risk, which I found, well, it makes sense, but I found it interesting because typically not something you come across that frequently, I would say.
Yeah, that's technically beyond me, but that's very interesting. I remember when we were talking about something Polkadot related the other day, Funky was making a similar point for, I think it might have been one of the hydration pools, for example, where that's also the case. Interesting. But yeah, look, I think we wanted to bring that up because, I don't know, there's a lot of negativity around in general about like various things, whether it's Kaito mindshare not being captured appropriately, whether it's pump fund trying to fleece everyone and take everyone's money and whatever. But there are still net new things being created in the space that are pushing the space forward. And I think maybe expectations have just got out of whack, where if you zoom out just a little bit, you've had humongous winners in this space in the last 12 to 18 months, which is maybe the same time as loads of people were losing all their money in the meme coin casino. But just because loads of people did that doesn't mean there hasn't been huge winners. Hyperliquid has risen, Athena has risen, Pendle has risen. Maybe a couple of these other ones that we're mentioning and playing around with will rise too. So I just think there's so many more reasons to be optimistic. But of course, like anything, if you spend all of your time, attention, and capital in things which are, by their design, a very, very risky game, and you might lose stuff, then sure, I can understand why you might leave with a bit more of a negative perspective. But I will not subscribe to that. I think there's just so much more good stuff being built. Ledge, final point here, or anything else you're interested in before we get into the main headlines?
Yeah, a couple more thoughts on that. Rahim is making a very good point in the YouTube comments, saying that Hyperliquid is seemingly bringing TradFi strategies to DeFi. How you get max volume TVL with the least amount of risk. Feel builders in crypto think that users always want risk, but that is changing. Another side product of this is, if you just generate millions and millions of volume with Liminal, you will move down the fee tiers. The fees on Hyperliquid are tiered depending or based on the volume that you do. So that's a nice byproduct of that. If you have enough money over a long enough time frame in there, you will also benefit from that. And then on the liquid launch side, so we both have a bag. We've disclosed that on the show multiple times, I think. As you said, it went up to 60 mil. It's at 50 mil now. And I have FOMO with this one. the reason I bought initially, and I said it, is because D-Pharma started to talk about that. And then he kept talking about that. And on X, he called it will be a kingmaker trade for some. And that increased my FOMO level. I actually wanted to chill out a bit. Then someone else started to share screenshots with me of people saying, hey, because the staking went live and we spoke about that, you earn the fees in hype. Oh, I earned my first 70 hype in staking my liquid launch token. So I don't want to buy in after it's
Have you done the maths though on how much
No,
you
I
would
haven't done
need
any math. I don't want to do the math because then I probably get more FOMO. The only thing I try to tell myself is this token is up 400% over the last 30 days. So I don't want to ape in now. But in general, I do want to have even more exposure to liquid launch, I think.
Okay, so a couple of things. Let me unpick one thing first. Sure, someone's earning 70 hype a day or whatever from staking. But if you do the maths, which you do not want to do, it won't actually increase your FOMO. It should probably cool it, because I, with not such a big bag, have almost got one hype. I don't know how much you've got from staking or whether you full staked yet. And it's like, because the token price has gone up quite a lot, I would say it's like a reasonable amount. It's not nothing for sure. So in order to earn 70 hype, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's like a multi-$100,000 position, basically. Which, I mean, is that still making you FOMO or?
It's still making me. I wanted to look at the.
I'm pretty sure that would be a multi-100K position to earn 70 hype a day.
Yeah, that's fair, but I don't know. I think if we bet on activity increasing on Hyperliquid, and you have the hype, the like 100% fee distribution back to stakers in hype, that could be one of the winners of this. Again, it's run a lot. I'd rather wait for a correction to get in, but I want to have a larger bag.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable general point, and that was the second part I was going to try to unpick. It's like, okay, well, what is the thesis here? What is the thinking? What are the reasons for this to go well? What are the reasons for it to go bad? The reasons for it to go well would be something like hype EVM activity just goes up. Like, that has to happen for this to go well. It doesn't matter if you're giving 100% of your staking fees to your stakers if hype EVM people decide, we just can't be bothered. We just really like the core product and everything happens on core and no one wants to go onto the EVM. So that has to happen for sure. There also probably has to be no competing launch pads, right? Like, think of the intense battle. Pardon?
That is the big one. Yep.
Yeah, like just think of the super aggressive competition that's happened on Solana, constantly trying to displace Pump Fun as the main meme coin launchpad. So you have to be betting, or that's at least part of the bet, which I don't think that you can be certain on. But that's you just being optimistic that no one will come and displace them. I certainly think that they've done a good job in the sense that they've probably won a lot of people over by making this move super early. But there's always a chance that someone could, in such an early ecosystem, see what they do and replicate in some way. So, I would keep an eye on that too. So those are the couple of thoughts. Definitely wanted to touch on Hyperliquid because I thought, cool, 2 new mechanisms / products which we are playing around with, and we'll keep highlighting those as we discover them. Right, let's keep it moving, Ledge. We've got 20 minutes left for the show. First headline is just general sell-off. I know I missed the conversation yesterday on the pump raise, so I'd be kind of curious to hear your headline takes and thoughts to what extent you think this sell-off is caused by this big raise that's happening. Is this a silo? Like, do we need to be concerned about this? Is everything else going to go down? Is this the other side for all coins? If you remember in 2021 when Bored Ape Yacht Club did the other side raise, I've seen that comparison being made, maybe jokingly, but what's your thought here?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to get some data on that sell-off in, Abi shared this post saying that meme coins are down 16% over the last 7 days, another 4% over the last day. sitting at a total market cap of $57.5 billion. So definitely a significant movement if they are down 16% over the week. However, you have to benchmark that against Solana most likely. Solana is down 12% over the week. ETH is only down 4%, but still the majority of meme activity is in Solana. So technically, they just reacted a bit more volatile to Solana being down. Now, the question is, if you continue this train of thought, is Solana down because of the pump fundraise? Are people selling that off? That could be. Brett and I spent most of yesterday's show talking about this piece of news. I think one of the conclusions, or one of the things where we both agreed on, is it's a massive, massive revenue generator. And Brett spent a lot of time talking about like what he calls the fat app thesis, that ultimately will have loads and loads of infrastructure builders, but that significant apps on a specific chain could become more valuable than the infrastructure layer, the infrastructure provider itself. So he, obviously depending on what the token does, what Pump Fund intends to do with it, etc., could see a future for this. I think one of the things that we spent a lot of time talking about was the streaming side, basically talking through how expensive it is if you want to get the top tier kick, not Twitch, because you can't do gambling on Twitch, the top tier kick streamers. And that this in that case is not funded by Kick's revenue, but it's funded by people participating in that $1 billion raise, which could be used to do that. So whatever they plan to do with the money, we don't know yet, but you could arguably make the point, if they really want to grow this, it's not cheap to dominate the streaming side of things. So that is one side. And then the other side, the other part of the question that you had was, is this like basically the Bored Ape, the other side moment of last cycle? Could be. I don't know. I don't think that. Look, even if we just spoke about Liquid launch a couple minutes ago, and I expressed being like bullish on volume increasing on Hyperliquid, I don't think we're gonna see the same kind of meme season on Hyperliquid now, and that all of the activity is gonna move there. I think we've seen the biggest peak of the roller coaster for now. Now, I'm not saying that there's not gonna be a meme coin that could come out and hit double-digit billions at some point in the future or the next couple of years. But I think this mania has concluded. It's not perfectly tracking the other side comparison, because like apes and everything were like up only, where now we already have had a down season for memes, and they are not at all-time high anymore. They're far away from all-time high in most cases. And there's a good amount of delay until the Pump Fund token comes out. I do not see it like in the short term reinvigorating the market. In the mid to long term, it really depends what they're going to do. If they funnel all of the attention into streaming and really will use this to bring more gamblers in, then sure, we'll see an uptick in volume. But I think that translation would take more time. It's not going to be token is out and everything is back to normal. But I also don't think that this is the top moment, because we've already seen the first meme top a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Half a year ago.
I like a lot of that thinking. I try to keep these things simple. My instinctive thought is, of course, it makes sense to sell your worthless tokens for one that is worth something. Like, that's just like, in some ways, this was the scenario that everyone was faced with not so long ago. There were potentially valuable tokens that were not allowed to be valuable, either via regulation, because people were inhibited by regulations, which meant they could not turn on a fee switch, or they were inhibited from being valuable because the VC model meant that even if they were making money, which many of them maybe weren't enough, but even if they were, the tokenomics were such that they would be dumping the token aggressively all the time, which would mean that even if you're buying into what you think is a good product and team, the price of your token is just going to go down because the tokenomics are so bad, because the VCs have to realize their investment. Those two things, the regulation plus the VC model made many good tokens or potentially good tokens uninvestable. So in that world, you move towards memes. It's like, okay, well, these are worth less, but we can at least play a game here where maybe we can make the number go up, and there's not this tokenomic structure, which once we reach a certain point in time, there's going to be people dumping on us. Now, obviously, that industry became more sophisticated in a way where there were actually insiders also, and those people would also dump on your head as well. But that, that was the environment that we were working in. Now we're moving into a different environment, a markedly different environment. The regulations are getting better. People are far more happy to turn on some type of fee switch, whether that's either revenue going directly to stakers like Liquid launch, or buybacks in the form of what Hyperliquid is doing. So, and the regulation is easing in general. So you have an opportunity for companies which are profitable to return some of that value to the people who are investing in their liquid tokens. So why would people not? This is just me following my logic through. Why would you not dump your explicitly worthless tokens which potentially are not just potentially are in fact returning something back to you? Like, this just makes complete sense to me. As you say, I think people will continue to play around in the meme coin arena, the meme coin casino, but the dynamics of the whole market has changed. Completely changed. Revenue generating protocols have an opportunity to distribute and maintain the value and increase the value of their own tokens now in a far more explicit way than ever before. So I think people need to get with that general kind of framework change which is happening. And yes, I think pump will cause a sell-off across the board, although I don't think it's, I think it's not going to cause a sell-off of like other good coins. It's going to cause a sell-off of worthless coins. So if you have a worthless coin, as you have seen, many of the worthless coins are selling off as we speak, and they may continue to do that. However, if you have a coin that is worth something, that is good and strong for various reasons, why you don't necessarily need to swap one for the other. You can keep yours, and then maybe you want to enter pump anyway. But maybe a separate point here is that I think the pump valuation is actually, I think the pump valuation is okay. I just think the amount they're raising is super high. That would be my nuanced takes. Like, the valuation I think is okay. Probably gives you some space for the upside, in my opinion, based on how much money they make, because they make a ton of money. But I just think, wow,
amount in fees as Hyperliquid does.
yeah.
Roughly.
And Hyperliquid's worth double that, right? It's a 12, so 3 times. So I have no issue with the valuation number. Maybe I have an issue with, like, damn, you're trying to raise 1 bill. Like, okay, fair enough. If the market's going to give it to you, I'm actually okay with them trying to go for that as well. But I think that is a huge number, right? It's just a colossal number. So those are my reflections. Ledge, what are you thinking here?
I think if I were to compare it to anything, it's more to the OpenSea moment. I have no idea what the valuation was that OpenSea raised. Did its last raise at peak
13, I think, off the top of my head, but I'll just double check.
And then obviously NFT volume imploded at some time, and we still don't have an OpenSea token. And they're like, yeah, investors in that VCs will most likely never see a return on that investment coming back. Now, it might be
just to give you the number, Ledge. I remember Deez tweeted this a couple of days ago. OpenSea raised 300 million, so a third of what Pump is trying to raise, at a 13.3 billion valuation last bull market.
Yeah. So I think 2 points to that. I think that obviously there is like this, growth potential, growth route for Pump with the streaming set of things, with other things they could do that might be a bit more obvious than OpenSea still single-handedly depending like on the NFT hype to continue. And then the other thing that I'd like to put in perspective is something that you said. I also don't have an issue with the valuation. I don't think it's like overly greedy or so. It's certainly high, but the amount raised is high. It's 25% of the company basically being put up for sale versus, what did you say? 300 mil at 13 bill?
300 mil at 13.
So like 3%, basically 8 times. Yeah, it's a lot of money to give away in a single round. Or it's a lot of equity to give away in a single round.
I agree. In the end, like you're kind of betting on, you're assuming that there's some big plans to go with it, right? Some huge plans to go with it. I'll be keeping an eye out. I think, yeah, that's exactly my take, basically. Valuation, fine. Amount raised, high. So let's keep an eye out. Conscious of time, Ledge, we've got 9 minutes left. I think that's enough on Pump to get our thoughts out there. Let's skip my one for a second and go to yours, because we're talking about these liquidity sucks or markets or people investing in two different options at the moment. You've got Pump coming. You've got the Circle IPO, which is said to be 25x oversubscribed, and separately you've got Plasma trying to do this humongous raise as well to get all of these coins onto the Tether chain. Do you want to touch on Circle's IPO now? What do we know? I think it's today. What do we know? What do we need to know? What's your thoughts?
Yep, it is today. The headline is a Circle IPO hits $1.1 billion as the firm sells shares above marketed range. A couple of things going on there, a couple of things that are important. So what happened is that Circle sold 34 million shares at about $31 each. According to a report by Bloomberg, which basically aggregated all of the sales that happened, that would put the market value of the company, the market cap that is at roughly 6.9 bill, and the FTV at $8.1 billion. That is more than Circle expected to raise just 2 days ago. That's 900 million, almost $900 million more. A couple more interesting numbers to do with that, and also a couple more dates. Yes, trading starts today. Ticker will be CRCL, so Circle. It is not the first major crypto company to IPO under Trump's second term. We had eToro IPO listing last month, and eToro, which is stock trading, perp trading, and crypto trading platform, is at a $5.35 billion market cap. Don't know how much they're making in fees. Wasn't able to find that on a quick notice. And then the other thing, which you also mentioned, which is relevant to look at from the perspective, is obviously the market share in terms of stablecoins. Let's bring this chart up over here. And yeah, we have the total stablecoin supply getting closer and closer to 250 to the $250 billion mark. And Circle has 61 billion market cap, so roughly 25% of that. And this will raise a couple interesting questions for me. If basically we have the IPO today and we have the plasma sale coming out a couple days, and the plasma sale seems to go more into the direction, more into the narrative of being the tether chain, as you also like to call it. That would be interesting to see how the Circle IPO and how that 25x oversubscribed demand, which also stats pointed out in this post, will do, and how it will impact the plasma raise. I think there is already an impact there, given that the plasma sale raise, whatever, hasn't even started, and it was initially capped at 100 mil. And before it even started, they already upped that to 250 mil. And you also mentioned the fact in the snapshot that the individual contribution is capped at 50 million. I don't think that this is just a random number that they picked to flex. I think there is people out there who have a lot of interest to put a lot of money into that. And it's going to be interesting to basically look at both how Circle's going to do post-IPO and how the plasma raise is going to do over the next, I don't know, how long is it open for? It starts in a week, but I don't know how long it's going to be open for. A couple of weeks as well? Something like that?
It's going to be weeks, not months, is what the document said. It's going to go, man. It's not going to, like, I think they will have designed this. This is not based on any specific information, but this is basically the tether chain. As you say, there's a reason why they've said individual, like who else is bold enough to assume that there would be someone with like $48 million who wants to come in? Like, no one would do that, right? No one would do that ordinarily. So there are going to be people who are putting in, I was saying this either privately or on the show before, like there are going to be people just chucking in millions and millions in one go. The only thing I would say to maybe, it's definitively a whales game, definitely that. So, is it worth it for a smaller person to participate? Because the thing is, the initial cap might be 250 mil, but it's going to keep expanding. The reason why it's going to keep expanding is because they are very much incentivized to increase the caps over and over again, because this is a vampire attack on all the other chains and all the other various types of stable coins, because the way that you get your deposit back is on Plasma as USDT whenever this process concludes. You can actually withdraw it at any point during, so that will be okay as well. But if you do see the process through, you get it back in USDT. So I wouldn't necessarily think, 5 people, and I don't know if this will literally happen, but 5 people have put in 50 million each, 250 mil cap is gone. I'm completely out of it. Obviously, that's going to get a very delicious allocation of XPL, which they're going to have to put in more capital for, because it's the time weighted. You get points based on the amount of time you deposited the money for, but they'll definitely open it up again and allow you to come in. So, concluding thoughts there. Maybe a final thing. Drawing this comparison between Circle, it's definitely not a one-to-one comparison, right? There's no equity involved in this.
That's correct.
Plasma raise. It's purely token, no kind of rights over revenue as such. So it's not comparing things one-to-one, but as you know, the reason we're doing it is because obviously there are interesting parallels here and competing stablecoin issuers who are involved. So I do think seeing Circle with a strong showing will increase the appetite for Tether chain, even if those two things are not one-to-one. Even if Circle doesn't show strongly, though, which I think we're already getting the indications that it will, I think this Plasma stuff is going to get eaten up, irrespective, to be honest. So,
I'll try to get both. I'll try to get exposure to both. If my broker is somewhat fast and reasonable with order execution, I'll get some Circle stocks going, and I also will participate in the Plasma sale and see how it goes.
Good stuff. Okay, so we kind of discussed that. Oxy, your hand is raised. Welcome to the stage, my man. What do you have to contribute on either Plasma or Circle IPO? What are you thinking here?
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it, man. Yeah, on the Circle IPO specifically, it's really interesting to me that it's so oversubscribed. I was running some numbers on like the financials, and obviously everyone talks about Coinbase and the amount of like the fee that they take, which is like enormous, and obviously cuts into their bottom line quite a bit. But I think the bigger headwinds that they're going to run into is treasury yield coming down, if it does come down. So I ran some of the numbers, and even a 0.5% decrease in interest rates as it relates to treasury yield puts them at a net operating loss like immediately. So obviously, Trump's really pushing Powell to decrease rates. If Powell caves or what have you, or the economy kind of turns around and that happens naturally, I think there's some serious headwinds for them outside of the Coinbase discussion. So I don't know, there must be something else. They must be talking about different ways to diversify that yield and that the revenue generating model to make investors excited or optimistic that they can kind of turn that around. But it was just interesting to me that it was so oversubscribed by some of these huge players.
I think it's a great take. I mean, fortunately, it looks like the rates and stuff are out of control, and they might just keep going up at the moment. So maybe that saves them in some level. But I really like the take on the Coinbase having the kind of hand in the cookie jar in a respect. We spoke about that on the show a long time ago, where we saw the financials, and they're super, super dependent. They're super vulnerable to Coinbase. Coinbase have already announced that they'll be working with the PayPal stablecoin as well at some point over the summer. Pretty sure they announced that like a month or two ago as well. And personally, I completely agree, Oxy. If I had to bet on either, I would much rather any type of stake in Tether right now versus Circle, because they just own way more of their own stack. and are not have fewer vulnerable points, in my opinion. So yeah, we'll obviously watch it with eagerly, but I take your points, and there's excellent kind of contribution to it because we missed that part out. Appreciate it, Ox. Ledge, final. Did you want to come in for something quickly there, or are you good?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good.
Final headline, guys, before we close off, because we've kind of run out of time today, but this is just a quick one to get you up to speed. JPMorgan plans to offer clients financing against their crypto ETF holdings, which is pretty big news. Obviously, JPMorgan have had like a very checkered history with crypto. The CEO routinely bashing Bitcoin over and over again, not being its biggest fan, but it looks like you will be able to use crypto as collateral, if not soon, then relatively soon. So that is a huge development, and that's excellent. That's, I think, maybe for us who are in the space, that's like an inevitable development that we think is going to come. So I suspect that will be accelerating moving forward, and we'll see more of those style of announcements from maybe the more traditional banking sector as well. Good stuff, guys. That is the end of the show today. Ran a little bit over time. I hope you enjoyed it. As usual, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time for 1 hour live on X Video, YouTube. And if you want to catch up, we're on Apple and Spotify. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, if you want to catch the shorts, we are on TikTok. We are using Legendary's algorithm on TikTok. You get all the Austrian police videos in the background. Follow us on TikTok. We would appreciate it. We hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.